Welcome to the Golden Whiskers Podcast. Today, we're going to be diving into a hot topic that can leave cat parents feeling overwhelmed: vaccines. So, if you've ever stared at that reminder card from your vet and thought, wait a minute, do I really need more shots? This episode is for you. We're going to explore when vaccines are truly needed and talk about how we can protect our cats without overdoing it. So, joining me is Dr. Jeff Grognet, a holistic veterinarian, educator, and the brains behind New Earth Vet. He's been practicing for over 40 years and teaching pet parents and vet students how to care for animals in a more conscious, natural way. Dr. Jeff, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Scott. It's always good to get together with you.
Yeah, definitely. I know we talked about vaccines in the Feline Wellness Summit. I'm glad it's such an important topic, and not everybody saw our interview back then. But before we dive into the main questions here, I want to give a quick update about my cats, because what's more important than talking about Nico and Milo? So we won't go through the whole scenario, but Dr. Jeff and I, when we talked during the Feline Wellness Summit, he helped me walk through Nico and Milo's vaccination history. They had received 2 rounds of the FVRCP and 1 rabies shot as kittens. And then Dr. Jeff kind of gave me a huge sigh of relief, but it turns out they're likely covered for the life on their core vaccines. And we'll dig into why that is during our interview. But now it's May 2025, and I haven't done anything since, so they haven't gotten any more vaccines. They're 1 year and 9 months old, and I know the rabies law here in Tennessee says something about a booster. I think I need to get another round. In fact, I was looking back at our notes, Dr. Jeff, and you said they needed another round in December of 2024. So I'm a few months after that. So just for my peace of mind, am I officially behind? Am I breaking the law because it's been they're 1 year, 9 months now, and it's been over a year since they got their last round of rabies vaccines?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's how I'll term it. Technically, yes. You're in default, Scott. And this is the key with the rabies vaccine. If you're following the directions, you get one done as a kitten. Okay. And then the next one's due a year from then. And then there's 2 types of vaccines. There's one vaccine that's given every year from then on. And then there's one that's given every 3 years from then on. Okay. But the one of a year after the kitten one, that's fairly standard with all the vaccine manufacturers. And it's based on what the vaccine manufacturer states. Okay. So that's what you should be following to be compliant with the law.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to schedule that appointment this time just to make sure I'm compliant. Okay, great. So let's kind of dig into the main core of the interview. We often, as pet parents, and we'll talk about cat parents here, we'll get a card in the mail that says it's time to get the next round of vaccines. Yeah. My question to you, Dr. Jeff, why do so many of us just follow the reminder card? And when the postcard, when it says your cat's vaccines are due, is that always true?
Well, the thing on the boosters is that there's a lot of debate on how often they're really needed. And so what you're going to find is you're going to find, and I'm going to break vets into 2 groups: conventional and holistic. Okay, conventionally, there's a fair about 40% of veterinarians that think that the vaccine should be done every year, which means you have them done as a kitten. You'd have the 2 vaccines done. And then they say, yep, and it's due a year from then. And then some of them say it's due a year after that, and a year after that, and keep going, right? There in the 1990s, it changed a fair bit to where, gee, guys, we've got, and this is the kicker, there's side effects with vaccines. So we better reduce the frequency. And that's when this idea of every 3 years came out. So we had, at that point, a fair number of veterinarians that moved to the 3-year schedule. And so that got adopted, and you'll still see that remnants of that throughout vet practices. A lot of them are on a 3-year schedule in adult cats and dogs, by the way. But the other side is you've got remember the holistic camp? Okay. And so what they're going on, this is what I go on too, is that, gee, vaccines last a whole lot longer than just a year or 3. And just think of your experience and my experience. You had vaccines when you were a munchkin. Okay. How many times have you had a booster since you were 12 years old?
Probably none.
Pretty well 0, right? I mean, something that might go in there is tetanus or something, But the point is, and of course, COVID, flu vaccines, all that stuff that I call it the old people like me might suffer from. But the point is that all the childhood diseases, and that's the thing with the cats and dogs, the ones that we get as puppies and kittens are pet disease or puppy and kitten diseases, okay, as in pediatric things. And so once you get older, you've got what we call memory. So I had vaccines when I was a kidlet against polio. Okay, I remember that one because that's the one where they scratch your arm and do it that way. I don't know if you remember that stuff's gone. But anyway, the point is when you get that done, it's considered good for life. And with kittens, when you get the vaccines done, as soon as you stimulate that immune system, you've got memory. That memory means that if the disease comes along a year later or 10 years later, the immune system is going to say, I remember that. And then they mount an immune response and get rid of it. Okay. And if you ask any veterinarian what they learned in vet school is, they learned about this thing called memory. Unfortunately, I love this. They sort of forgot that there's this thing called memory. and all of a sudden that they're following what the vaccine manufacturers are tempting them to say, and that is, hey, we better do it every year, guys. So when you get that card, the immunity hasn't dropped off on that date. They don't expire a year or 3 years from when you got the last one done. It's a real gradual process. Okay? But the point is that even though you can't measure the immunity in the bloodstream, the immune system's kicked in. It's got that remnant called memory, and we really don't need to look at getting another booster on the core vaccines. And then you mentioned them, the FVRCP, some people call them PRC, panleukopenia, and respiratory viruses.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Those are the core ones. And I think I remember you mentioned that they can last 7 years, or even sometimes they can last the entire life even?
Yeah, we know that they last for 7 years.
Okay.
That's been proven, and it was in the vaccine guidelines that we had back in the 1990s and the 2000s. It actually said that all through there in the small print, and that is, hey, it's good for 7 years. And they're talking about the panleukopenia, respiratory viruses. In just to throw this out, in dogs with distemper and parvo, 9 years. Okay, but they also said comma and possibly a lifetime. They couldn't actually say it because no one's ever tested them out to 18 years old.
Right.
But when it starts making sense, and there's 2 parts to this. One is in the human land, our experience, we've got vaccines that last us for 60, 70 plus years. And then the other side is that when you go and vaccinate, when you're vaccinating for, as I call it, for the young diseases. The one panleukopenia is devastating to a kitten when it's 6 weeks old. As in, it's a parvovirus, and they can die from it. It is serious. Okay, and if they get it at 3 months, not quite as serious, but it's still a bad disease. If they get it at 1.5 years old, they quite often shrug it off. They're fine. Okay. So the point is, we don't need to continue giving them those vaccines because they're not susceptible to the symptoms of the disease later on in life. Okay.
So for my cats, since they've gotten the FVRCP, once they turn 7 or 8, should I be, doing a little bit of digging in to see if the vaccine is still lasted or not?
Well, when you say digging in,
Yeah.
what you're talking about possibly is doing a titer.
Titer,
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So this is the key, and this is another thing that the practitioners sort of get goofed up. A fair number of veterinarians said, well, instead of vaccinating, we're going to do a blood test, a titer, and find out if the vaccine is truly needed. And what they're looking at is if you have a certain amount, then you don't need to vaccinate. If it's under a certain amount, you do. Okay. Now, this is the point. When you're doing a titer, you have to use it correctly. And most veterinarians don't use it correctly. They're doing it as a measure of the antibody level, which we know over time, as long as they're not challenged by that disease over and over, the level's going to go down. Okay. And so what you're looking for is to find out, okay, does it get to a certain amount and then we're in trouble? But the thing is, if you've already proven that the immune system has come on board, as in it's got the memory, technically we don't need to do another titer. Okay, so that's a big concept for a lot of people, and that is, you do the vaccines as a kitten. A month later, you do a titer. Find out, have we got an immune system that's on board? Is it provided protection? So we measure the antibody to those specific diseases that we're interested in. Panleukopenia is the big one. Okay. And if we find, hey, we've got a protective titer, that's what it's called, then we can say that, okay, we've proven the immune system's come on board. We've got memory cells in there that are going to last the cat's lifetime. So even if the disease comes along, they're going to come to life and kill the invader. That's what their job is. Okay. But the problem you've got is that a lot of veterinarians don't use it in that way. They lose their immunological principles that they learned in vet school and start saying, no, we're just going to replace the vaccine interval with it. So they end up doing it every 3 years, say, okay, and looking for it to go down. Yeah, it's going to go down. So what? It doesn't mean anything if it's down below detectable level. That's the key. It's not zero. It's never zero. Okay. So that's the key. You have to think of how the vaccines are working and how the titer works for you as well. Yeah, and that's what you need to know.
Great. Okay. What about my cats who are indoor cats, right? So they're not going outside. They're not coming in contact with other cats. So compare my cats versus outdoor cats that may be in contact with other animals. Are there any other vaccines that an outdoor cat owner should consider versus the one that mine are, staying inside and doing? Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is the big thing: indoor cat versus outdoor cat. Okay, and first off, indoor cats. Okay, the risk of them picking up a disease that we vaccinate for, and I'm talking any disease right now, is pretty well close to zero, right? And that is, you don't have stray cats coming in your house beating up your cats. They're not going out and getting bitten by bats or rabid dogs, right? So the risk you have is infinitesimally small. And this is where getting onto, like, some veterinarians just don't even recognize that fact. And that is, they say, yeah, but your cat is still susceptible. Well, it's susceptible to what? Okay, so if they're truly indoor cats, and then as they stay inside, you have screened windows and doors, so you're not going to have, I'm talking about bats here carrying rabies. They're not coming in, and they can't get down a fireplace and come into the room that way. Hey, where your cats are in a sterile environment, those cats, I don't recommend giving them any more vaccines, period, okay, because there's really no need for it from a medical standpoint. Okay. Notice how I said that rather than legal.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's say I've got a cat that's right here, and I've got a cat door in the wall, and it's going in and out. Okay. Again, the vaccines are going to provide protection. Okay. One thing that I keep seeing is that, if your cat goes out, the risk of them getting disease is so much higher, so we need to keep up the vaccines more and more. Hold it. Does that mean the vaccines don't work as well if my cat's going outside? No, they're still working.
It should be protecting them, right?
They've got their immunity.
Yeah.
What's the problem? You don't need to give extra vaccines just because they're going out for fresh air. Okay. The only one disease that could be a little bit different is feline leukemia. And that is a kitten disease. The protection from it isn't so hot. And a lot of kittens pick it up before you even start the vaccines. So that's one sort of screw up on the feline leukemia. But if you're going to get the feline leukemia vaccine done, have it done as a kitten. And if you do the two, like you did, you do the two vaccines, it's good for 5 years. And then at that point, you're pretty well out of the kitten window when they can pick it up. So really, we only need to do those two and then we're finished. The veterinarian is going to tell you, because the vaccine manufacturer says that when you do the kitten ones, you do one a year after, and you do it every year from then on out. Okay. Some vets go to every 3 years. Okay. But the vaccine manufacturers don't usually state that for leukemia.
Are there situations where a cat needs a FIP vaccine?
0. Okay, was that direct enough for you?
Yeah. Say it again for people in the back of the room.
Yeah. FIP vaccines, feline infectious peritonitis, which is caused by a coronavirus, unrelated to COVID-19. That virus, they got a vaccine for it back in the 1980s. And it was one that was squirted in the nose, so like a nose drop. And in the initial studies on that vaccine for licensing, what they found is the cats that were vaccinated died faster than the ones that weren't vaccinated. It's like, and you guys are promoting this vaccine? And it's still out there. There's veterinarians using it, buying it, and using it in their patients, which is, is dumbfounded. If you go to the American Association of Feline Practitioners vaccine guidelines and check FIP, or if you go to Cornell Feline Health Center, I'm sure you're familiar with all that stuff, Scott, all of them recommend do not give coronavirus vaccine, FIP vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that should clear it up. Don't touch it, don't use it, and there's no basis for using that vaccine.
I know you've mentioned there's some risks of over-vaccinating. So just to kind of make things clear, what would you consider over-vaccinating? So what would that definition be? And then what are some of those risks?
Okay. Well, the first risk that was identified, and this was back in the 1990s, was tumors. And that is where a cat gets an injection, you can have a tumor starting up called a feline fibrosarcoma, which is a malignant tumor that grows, it puts fingers into the tissue. Doing surgery is really hard on those guys. And you have to get so deep that it's very hard to remove. That was the stimulus for cats to be vaccinated rather than over the shoulders, down on the leg. Because if you get a tumor forming, I can amputate the leg. I can't amputate the shoulder area. Okay, the difference there. But anyway, the point is, it's not just vaccines. It's any injection really at all. But the vaccines were the first thing that was linked to it. Okay, because all of a sudden they were getting those tumors. The other things we worry about is effects on the immune system, creating allergies, inflammatory bowel disease, things like that, and overall cancer in the body. So there's lots of reasons to try and reduce the vaccines. Over-vaccinating, this is where you're going to get a total ream of different opinions on this. There are some veterinarians that don't agree with any vaccinations at all. So giving a vaccine, one, is over-vaccinating. Wow. Okay. And that's more of what's called the homeopathic veterinarians. I'm in the camp where I've seen kittens or puppies, the young kids dying from diseases that we can vaccinate for, mainly the panleukopenia in the kittens. And so, I'm more comfortable getting the kitten vaccines done for that particular reason. Okay. But I'm also in that camp where let's get the kitten vaccine done. Let's do a titer a month later or not, and just go with that one and then don't plan on doing any more of those vaccines. And then the optional ones like feline leukemia, generally they don't do. The prevalence where I am is really quite low. And a lot of people have their cats restricted in some way. Okay, and so if you've got a big shelter running with hundreds of cats, and there's a chance there's going to be feline leukemia in there. Okay, so but on your average owner owned cat, the risk actually is really quite low. And so I don't do any other vaccines in that way at all. And so over-vaccinating to me is doing anything more than the kitten series. Okay. For other vets would go on it. Well, if you're doing it more than every, say, 3 years or something like that. But I can't justify giving it every 3 years, even at that point. That's my goal on that.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's bring it back to Nico and Milo, because again, they're the most important thing around here in this podcast. But just had kind of a personal curiosity type question. They're doing good. They don't have any health issues currently. Again, they're 1 year and 9 months. How often do you recommend taking them to the vet just for a wellness checkup?
It depends on how prone they are to getting diseases. Okay. Now, you're going to be able to reduce the chance of diseases by feeding in the most optimal way and doing that type of thing and reducing the vaccines, ironically. Wow. Then this is where you get the dichotomy. Conventional vets say, well, if you're really taking care of your cat, you're going to be bringing them in every year. We're going to be doing the vaccines every year. They're going to be on a flea and or tick preventive. They're going to get dewormed, and they're fed this really high quality, dry commercial food. Yeah. That's the picture of health,
right,
in their brain. Okay, you're dealing with a philosophy here. Okay, versus picture of health in my brain is that we're not doing any more vaccines because we've already finished. They're out of kittenhood. We're feeding them a species appropriate diet. Now that you can get into cooked diets, you can get into raw diets, but I'm talking about a fresh diet in some way. And because of that, they're not obese. And so they're prone to all the diseases that the cats that get commercial foods are prone to. And so they're lean and mean, and they're just healthy. And as long as they're doing really well, and they don't have significant dental problems or anything like that, my temptation is to go spread out your visits. And so, but do your own home exams. How are we feeling? We're feeling good. We're well muscled. Hey, this cat's got attitude and activity. Perfect. Okay, so we don't have a slug. Okay. And so that's the kind of the case where, I think we're in health time here. And so I'm not, the idea of going in every year and having a physical, that again is something that the conventional vets say, yeah, we should be doing. What I found in my practice is that once we got cats converted and their owners converted over to feeding a real food, we didn't see them anywhere near as often as before. It was great, right? I was doing myself out of a job in the sense, right. But that's okay. That was what I wanted to do. And it was me and my wife practicing. She was a vet as well, and it's like, yeah, we were just seeing them when they had an owie, more or less, right? Or something went wrong.
Yeah, I like that, because this ties in with one of the episodes that was recently published where we're talking about, instead of just treating the symptom each time, be proactive and figure out if they have something, why is that happening, and then take action to prevent it from happening the next time. So
that's exactly it. Yeah. You could prevent so many problems, Scott. And also feeding right keeps their immunity up. We don't need the vaccines again.
Yeah.
Right. We've got all this neat stuff that can work all together here.
Yeah. Beautiful. Let's wrap up with this. What is maybe the most misunderstood thing in feline wellness in your eyes?
I think what it really comes down to is being able to prevent the most preventable diseases here. And this is an unfortunate part. Cat owners are going to get this thing saying, hey, you should feed your cat right. And when I'm talking about feeding right, I've got a nutrition class I'm just finishing right now where we're going over the recipes on how to make your own food at home, right? That's what I'm talking about. And the thing is, once you get a cat off the commercial foods, their health just blossoms. I don't need to see them as often. They're not prone to diabetes. People understand so much better later on what you should be feeding if they're getting a little bit of a kidney problem starting up or anything like that. You can just do so much with nutrition. And so that's the cornerstone of everything. And so if I could get every cat onto a real food diet, and just think about your average cat that's living outdoors eating mice or something. It's on the perfect diet.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be overweight. So I'm not suggesting let your cats loose and go let them fend for themselves.
Right.
But we can feed them so much better than getting on the commercial bandwagon. Mm-hmm. It's simple to go buy a bag of food or get the cans of food. And canned food is far better than dry, for sure, anytime. But the thing is, we can do better. That's it. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it because everybody I'm interviewing has a very similar philosophy. It's not like one person saying eat kibble and the other person saying eat raw food. Yeah. I love it. And this is all benefiting me because again, my previous cats, they did eat kibble for their first 13 years. And now I'm learning a more holistic approach for my younger cats now. Been amazing. Dr. Jeff, I want to wrap up by just sharing with our listeners where we can find out more information. How do we get on your email list? How do we find out about your courses and programs? This nutrition course coming out.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. A simple way. The website that I have is New Earth Vet. So one word, newearthvet.com. And if you go there, there's a link that says ebook or something. If you get that, you're on my list.
Okay.
And that's probably the easiest way to get in. And then I have blogs. I do 2 blogs every week. They get published. And so that way I'm keeping this education going all the time.
And are you on social media at all?
Not much right now.
Okay.
We're developing that. Okay. But so our main thrust is through the email newsletter and such. And so that's what we're working on. And that way I can tell people what's happening. I've done 11 conferences now. I'm just setting up the number 12 and 13. So yeah, we'll always get lots of free events happening too.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
And I know Dr. Jeff has a free resource that he asked me to share with our listeners here. It's a 6-step holistic plan where you can kind of begin the journey of caring for your cats holistically and save money while providing the best health. I'm going to put a link so you can download that plan in the show notes. Dr. Jeff, it's been wonderful to chat with you again. We're always learning from you. Thank you so much for caring the way you do for our animals and for being a guest on this podcast.
You're totally welcome, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Everybody listening, if you love this episode, please hit follow and share it with a cat-loving friend and leave us a review. That's going to help others find the show. And don't forget, you're doing a great job. All the cat dads and cat moms out there, thank you for listening. And we will see you next time.